What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my review of the TCL 40 XL. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, the TCL 40 XL was recently launched, and this phone is really giving us a lot of value here, considering that it is meant to be a very affordable handset. In fact, you can buy this phone for well under $200, and I have linked to it in the video description. Now, despite this device being a more affordable option, you're getting a lot here, and I'll be going over all of that throughout this video. Now, before I get too far into things here with the device itself, let's see what all comes included in the box. So you can see right up front here, it does say TCL 40 XL. Then on the side of the box, we have some basic specifications about the phone, but I'll be covering all of this later on. But included here is some literature. We're also getting a USB-C cable for charging and data transfer, a 15-watt USB wall adapter for charging, and we're getting a SIM card removal tool. Now with this device, we're getting a very large 6.75-inch display. Now I'm a big fan of using smartphones with large displays because it really gives you a much better experience. For example, if you want to watch video content here in the phone, you really have a large canvas here to view those videos, and doing other things too, like browsing the web, or reading ebooks, or going on social media. Having a big display does give you a better experience. Now this display features IPS LCD technology, so not quite as good as AMOLED or OLED, but at the same time I wouldn't expect that for a more affordable device like this one. And then the refresh rate here is 60 Hz. So we're not getting that faster 90 Hz or even 120 Hz refresh rate with this phone, but I think for most people, if you're not looking to spend too much money, you're not really expecting to find that premium feature here. Also, in addition to that, this display is 720p, so no 1080p panel here, and that is a bit disappointing considering that the display is so large and then it is only 720p, but overall, I can still see things pretty clearly here on the display, and it's not like when you're looking at the display panel on the phone itself that it appears low quality. In fact, TCL got their start as a company creating TVs, so when they launched their smartphones, they took a lot of their experience with creating display panels and then applied that here. So overall, considering that it is a lower end display panel that we're getting here on the phone, it actually doesn't look too bad at all. And then we're getting a PPI of 260, and we're getting a 20:9 aspect ratio, so a more narrow but taller form factor. We're also getting pretty small bezels too all around the device, with a slightly thicker bottom bezel. Now up top here, the phone does feature a notch, which is a bit unfortunate, but in that notch is an 8-megapixel front-facing camera. And then stay tuned for later on in the video, as I'll be showing you a variety of different photo and video samples from all the various cameras here on the phone. Now this device is being offered in two different storage configurations. You can get it in either 128 gigs or 256 gigabytes, and the phone's also offered in either 4 or 6 gigabytes of RAM. So if you go for the version of the phone with less storage, you'll be getting less RAM, and then if you go for the version with more storage, you'll be getting more RAM. That's pretty much how they've kind of packaged things up here. Now this particular version of the phone does have 256 gigs and does have 6 gigs of RAM, so keep that in mind. So that's a lot of storage, and especially impressive considering how affordable this phone is. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me how they can sell a phone for literally under $200 with this much storage, but then if you're going for a more premium device like an iPhone and you want to up the storage to the next allotment, you end up paying like $200 or $300 more. So that kind of makes me think that when you pay for extra storage with the more premium smartphones, they're really kind of ripping you off. And to make things even better, this phone is compatible with microSD card expansion, so you can always add in a microSD card to offload photos and videos, for example, to free up some of that internal space. Now there is no wireless charging with the TCL 40 XL, however, this phone does have a fingerprint sensor located on the power button. So let's give that a try right now. And you can see that it's very fast and responsive. We'll try that again. So definitely very accurate, and I'm a big fan of that feature. And in addition to that, this phone does support Face Unlock, so I appreciate that there are multiple methods for getting into the phone. Now on the back of this device, we are getting a triple camera setup, so we're getting a 50-megapixel main camera, a 2-megapixel depth sensing camera for portrait mode, and a 2-megapixel macro camera for close-up images. And in addition to getting portrait mode with the rear camera, we're also getting it with the front camera. So if you're a big fan of having that feature, just know that you are getting that here. And then video recording with this device does max out at 1080p with both the front and rear cameras. But here's how things look on the camera app on the device. This is with the main rear camera right now. Then from here, we can go over to the extras menu and access super macro mode, so that we can use that macro camera. And then with that camera, you can get very close up and have things be in really good detail. In addition to that, we can head over to portrait mode and get those nice blurred out backgrounds. And you even have the ability to adjust the amount of blur that you're getting here, which is a nice customization. Then flipping around to the front facing camera, there's me right there. You can take portrait selfies, or if you want to, you can take standard selfies instead. So even though this phone is kind of a lower end Android device, I really do appreciate that we are getting so many different camera features here. Another thing I wanted to mention as well is that even though this phone does have a 50 megapixel camera, by default, it doesn't actually capture pictures with that camera at the full 50 megapixels. If you do want to get photos in 50 megapixels, you are gonna have to go over to the More tab and then access the high pixel mode. And then from there, you can see 50 megapixels is now enabled. Now, the reason why this isn't the default mode is because 50 megapixel photos do take up a lot more space on your device compared to a lower megapixel count. So they kind of assume that most people aren't going to need that feature. That's more for more advanced smartphone users. So I am glad they have it there, but keep in mind that if you do want to use it, you can't just access it by taking photos in the standard camera mode. Now, taking a look at some camera samples from this device, I'm actually very impressed with the quality. Now, I'll let these photos speak for themselves because you can see them right in front of you, but in general, for a phone that's as affordable as this one, I'm very happy with the results here. You could definitely take this phone on vacation, for example, and capture really great looking images that will be worth keeping. Or maybe you're at a family reunion, for example, and you want to take a photo of the whole family or something like that. Just know that the cameras here will not disappoint. Now, in more low light situations, you could end up with some trouble, but if the lighting's good, then the photos will look good. So again, I feel like you can get a pretty good idea of the photo quality just by looking at these samples that I'm showing you here in this video. I also appreciate that even though this is a lower end phone, selfies look great, and then if you do want to take portrait selfies, it does give you a pretty realistic looking blur. But let's now take a look at some video samples from the TCL 40 XL. What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with a 1080p front-facing test video from the TCL 40 XL. Definitely let me know what you think about the video and audio quality. And here's a 1080p rear-facing video from the TCL 40 XL. We do have very quick autofocus in video mode, which is great. Now internally, with the TCL 40 XL, as I mentioned a little bit ago, you can get this phone in either 4 or 6 gigabytes of RAM. Now, of course, the more RAM you get, the better, so keep that in mind. And then the processor here with the device is the MediaTek Helio G37. Now overall, I've actually been pretty happy with the performance of this device, considering that it is meant to be a more affordable budget option. Of course, you are still getting what you're paying for, and if you want a top-of-the-line smartphone, then you are going to have to pay quite a bit more. For example, the higher-end Samsung Galaxy phones or iPhones are closer to $1,000. So considering that this phone is just a fraction of that price, you certainly should not expect to get a phone of that level. But again, for what it is, I feel like the TCL 40 XL does perform pretty well. So if you do want a good, reliable phone for phone calls, text messages, going on social media, browsing the web, and then watching video content, and then maybe some gaming here and there, I feel like you will actually be happy with this phone. Now, I did run a benchmark test with this device using Geekbench 6, and here are the scores right now. So I got a single core score of 191 and a multi-core score of 842. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to see how the TCL 40 XL measures up with your current device. Because you certainly won't want to upgrade to this phone if it ends up actually being a performance downgrade. And then one other thing to mention as well is that this phone is limited to just 4G LTE. It is not compatible with 5G networks, which at this point in 2023, you can certainly get by with just 4G LTE, but at the same time, the carriers are really pushing 5G, and clearly that's the direction things are heading. So if you do want to kind of future-proof yourself and not end up with a phone that's going to be obsolete sooner than later, you might want to avoid this phone and go for a 5G device instead, but also keep in mind that 5G phones do tend to be a bit more expensive, so one of the reasons why this phone is so affordable is because it is only compatible with 4G. Now with this device, we're getting a very large 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery, and the phone is compatible with up to 18 watt fast charging. Now there is a 15 watt fast charger in the box, which is pretty good. It almost gets you up to that full 18 watts. so that's nice. But you will definitely want to use a fast charger of some sort, whether it's 15 watts or 18 watts, because the battery is so large here in the phone at 5,000 milliamp hours. Now, since the battery is so big, you should definitely expect to get very good battery life here with the device, easily a day if not multiple days of usage. And then with this phone, we are getting Android 13. It is running TCL's take on Android, so TCL has made a decent amount of modifications here. But what is nice is that the features they have added do tend to add some nice benefits, and they're definitely not gimmicky changes they've made to Android. So overall, I don't really mind their Android skin, and in addition to that, it is nicely refined as well, and I haven't really noticed any bugs. Now, as far as future updates go, I have no idea if this phone will get Android 14 or Android 15. If I had to guess, it probably won't be getting any updates to newer versions of Android, but you should expect to get at least some security patches going into the future. But who knows, maybe they'll surprise us and impress us by giving us Android 14 when it is out. However, I am a bit skeptical that that would happen. Another thing to keep in mind too is that this phone does not have NFC, so if you do like to use your phone for tap and pay at the grocery store, for example, or really any payment terminal that supports NFC payments, just know that you can't do that here. And that is pretty disappointing because I do find myself using that feature with any smartphone that does support it. But taking a closer look at the hardware of the device, the phone is made completely of plastic besides the display, which is made of glass. Now on the left side of the phone, we have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card. On the right side, we have the volume up and volume down buttons, and then also the power button, which doubles as the fingerprint sensor. Then up top here, we have the noise canceling microphone, and then also we have one of the two stereo speakers on this device. Now that's a very impressive feature that I almost forgot to tell you about, is that we are getting stereo speakers, and TCL is really taking things to the next level here with that stereo sound. Now typically, if a device does have stereo speakers, you get audio out of the main speaker, and then you get audio out of the earpiece. But instead of that, they have a whole dedicated speaker up top here. And due to these two speakers on the phone does get really loud, and you're getting great audio quality when listening to music or watching video content. Now on the bottom of the phone, we have the 3.5mm headphone jack, microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and then the main speaker. Then on the back of the phone, we have the camera module, flash, and the TCL logo. Now the phone does pick up a little bit of fingerprints, which is a bit disappointing because typically when I use phones with a matte finish, you don't really see fingerprints, but I can see them here with this device. That being said though, it's nowhere near as bad as using a phone that has a glossy back, as it seems like those phones are always covered in fingerprints anytime I use them. I think most people expect to get at least a 1080p display with their smartphone, so the fact that it is only 720p is a bit disappointing. And to make that So again, even though the display on this device is 720p, with it being so large at 6.75 inches, it is great for watching videos. And then having audio out of both sides here really does give you a very immersive experience. So the TCL 40 XL is certainly a great phone for watching videos. But overall, I feel like the TCL 40 XL is a really solid, affordable Android device. Now again, you're not getting 5G support here with the phone, so if that is important to you, then I suppose that's an instant deal breaker. But at the same time, if you're looking to get a device and not spend too much money, but at the same time, you want the phone to be pretty decent, with good cameras as well, then I feel like you will be happy here with the phone. But this concludes my review of the TCL 40 XL. Most importantly, I'm really curious to know what you think about this phone. Do you like it? Do you feel like it's a good deal? Or do you feel like they should have given us a bit more here for the price? Certainly let me know, but this is Kevin here, and I'll see you in the next one.